Well, pretty much what we saw play out coming to the fore yet again today, where we saw this strong turnaround in markets, initially positive, losing some of its luster as the day progresses. What's the market's reaction to the movement we're seeing right now?
I'm sorry, Alishia, I missed the last half of the question.
What's the market making of all the volatility we're seeing on the JSE All-Share Index right now, where we seem to be starting off a trade pretty strong and then dipping lower into negative territory?
Well, I think investors are feeling that the market is, a lot of stocks are at their ever bought level. So investors profit taking, ahead of meetings, the G20 that's coming up and the FOMC meeting this afternoon.
Well, of course, we have had technical analysts saying that we seem to be sitting on at the start of a bull run nevertheless, while some traders, yourself included, have suggested that we possibly might see a correction towards the 23,000 mark. So the question now is, how soon and how fast do we see that correction actually playing out?
Well, the guideline is that it would take a third of the time that the rising wedge has taken. So we're looking at just under a month. So if we do see a correction down to 23,500, it could possibly come off in just over a week.
Looking at the rand, I mean, it's that's really been standing in the spotlight. What's your view on the rand at the moment? Because to note is that it's not just against the US dollar that we're strengthening. We've strengthened against about 20% against all currencies, in fact.
Yeah, I think the view on the rand is that we'll probably see some further rand strength going forward. We kept rates unchanged yesterday, which really bodes well for the carry trade. And the market's really waiting for, we're going to wait to see what comes out of the budget out at the end of October. And if we have a look, there are a lot of calls from the G20 meeting that's going to start tomorrow and end on Friday for global counterparties really to see a weakness in the dollar going forward. So that really would really affect in terms of rand strength. Really push that for us in the next 6 months, if that really gets carried by the G20.
Of course, for now, the rand strength we're seeing, one would assume, illustrative of how much money is actually flowing in to the local economy. Is this as a result of the global markets picture or the outlook for the local economy?
If one looks at the amount of money or inflows that have come through, 2008 we had a withdrawal about 58 billion, and we're in terms of the year so far, we've had inflows about 54 billion. So really, I think the global players are looking at emerging markets and putting money where they expect growth to come from, because they were saying that developed markets are going to grow slower, and therefore for us quite positive for us in the long term.
Having said that, though, we do have many who are still pretty nervous about local companies. Are you?
Well, if one looks at, if you look at all the results that have come out in the past week, a lot of our local companies are cost-cutting, restructuring. They're now, going forward, are probably able to get loans. Our banks are lessening the credit criteria, quite positive for our local companies. And with the interest rates that cuts that we've had so far, I think we're going to start seeing consumer recovery. We're hoping that in terms of our defaults, our delinquencies, that really we're seeing a bottom there, and that we should see a recovery in our consumer base would really bode well for us.
Looking on the mining front, I mean, for now, it's really, despite them being exporters, it's these strong commodity prices that are really managing to offer support. If we look at gold miners specifically, what do you see being a reasonable break-even price for many of our gold miners?
Alishia, you know, with reference to the gold price, a nice price on gold would be 275,000 rand per kilogram. And in order to achieve this at current levels of say $1,000 an ounce, we would need the rand to trade at about 8.55. So really, our gold miners are not going to achieve this because the rand has been quite strong, and if we continue to see the rand strength, we saw it at 7.37 this morning, not really good for their margins.
Yolanda, we're going to have to leave the discussion there. Thanks so much for having joined us this afternoon. That, of course, Yolanda Le Roux joining us.